Now, this video is not to let you know how I feel about being vaccinated. I am just letting you know my experience, what I went through, what you can also look for if you happen to get sick, whether you're vaccinated or not. Hi, thank you so much for watching. My name is Culture, and in today's video, I'm going to share with you what my past few weeks have been like with COVID. So I was what has been called a breakthrough COVID case. I was vaccinated in April with the Pfizer vaccine, and I never had COVID before. And I got sick about 3 weeks ago. So I woke up one day with a slight congestion in my nose and just a little bit of a sore throat. Now, mind you, I do not suffer from allergies. I feel bad for anyone who does. My husband suffers from major allergies, so does my mom, and I feel awful for them. But I, for one, don't ever get allergies. Also, the last time I got sick to the point where I actually had to take medicine was probably before my daughter was born, and she's now 8.5. I do get the occasional cold like once a year, but nothing that I would have to take medicine for. When I woke up with what seemed to be allergies, I was a little confused. I thought maybe it was some brand new skincare that I added to my nightly routine because there was nothing else I could think of. So that was day one. Day two, I woke up the next morning with even more congestion and a stronger sore throat. The congestion was so strong that I couldn't even breathe out of my nose, and it was causing me to have like a sinus headache and just kind of feeling yucky. I didn't change anything in my skincare, even the new products, I just kept using them because maybe I thought initially I would have like some kind of allergic reaction. I honestly had no idea what it was until we received a phone call from one of our kids' indoor activities, and they said that we might have had exposure because one of the instructors there had tested positive for COVID. We were there on a Sunday. The instructors showed symptoms on Monday, got tested, and by Friday they had a positive COVID test, which led to the phone calls that we got. So because we got that phone call, we thought for sure I probably have COVID. My husband wasn't showing any symptoms. My kids weren't showing any symptoms. So I was relieved that I was the only one showing symptoms. So once we got that call and knew that I had exposure, I made an appointment that same day with my doctor to get tested. I was so happy when I went to the doctor because there was no line at all. I thought for sure I was gonna have to wait in line for like 2 hours, but they took me right in. I got my results the very next day. They said that through the portal I would have the results, but if they were positive, I would receive a phone call. So the next day I was waiting for that phone call or the pop-up in my app, and sure enough, I got a phone call. And I knew instantly, holy cow, I have COVID. So she talked to me on the phone, said that I was positive. Unfortunately, forgot to ask if it was Delta, but the nurse who tested me said that they were seeing a lot more people who had been vaccinated that got sick anyways, and it was the Delta variant. So she gave me all of the necessary like protocols and information about quarantining and making sure that I didn't go out in public, which of course I wasn't going to anyways, but being at home, we just made the most of it. I quarantined from my family, even though we were all in the house, and they also were very responsible. Even though they didn't have symptoms, we didn't want them to be going out and having play dates and going to places because we didn't know if they were sick either. They ended up getting tested a few days later, along with my husband, and they were all negative. They never showed any symptoms, and they also tested negative for COVID. So we continued to quarantine because if they were positive, then I wouldn't have to quarantine at home. I wouldn't have to separate myself from them in each of the rooms or anything like that. We can like hug and kiss, but because they were negative, I had to separate myself from them. So I ended up using my daughter's room as a quarantine room. I had all of my, things that brought me comfort. I had a TV in there. I had my tablet, my phone. My kids would bring me little care packages filled with treats, which was so sweet. And I just spent a lot of my days outside in our backyard. As far as my symptoms went, I never had a fever, 0 fever. I never had any cold chills. I never had any body aches. I thought for sure that if I was ever gonna get COVID, I would have body aches because I have a lot of injuries from the past, from dancing, from running, from gymnastics and everything. I thought for sure I was gonna have really bad body aches, but I didn't have one body ache. I thought for sure it was going to bring out all these ailments in me, but it didn't have any effect on my body at all. Thank goodness. I was able to just get around, do my daily thing, and it was really nice because I was able to force myself to just relax, not do anything. I didn't do anything in the house as far as cleaning or chores or anything. I just relaxed and watched a ton of movies, which was actually really fun. I did get a little antsy, a little bit of cabin fever, but I just wanted to get better, so I didn't push myself. So again, no fever, no body aches. The only things that I had were congestion in my nose, which caused me to have some sinus headaches, sore throat, but not a sore throat to the point where like I couldn't eat anything, where it was like difficult to swallow or anything like that. It wasn't like that at all. It was just a sore throat that lasted for a couple of days. I would say like 4 or 5 days, I did have a bit of coughing, but not initially. Initially, it was just the nose and the sore throat. And then after a couple days, it was a little bit of a cough, but not like an uncontrollable cough. It was also a cough that was like because my throat was really dry. So I kept a large bottle of water. I drank a ton of liquids all day long. So anytime that I felt my throat was dry was when I was speaking or laughing. But that's the only time that I felt like I needed to cough. In the middle of the night, a couple nights, I had like an uncontrollable cough, maybe because I hadn't drank water for a couple of hours, where during the day I was drinking just constantly, but at night, I guess my mouth would just dry out and I would wake up in the middle of the night and just have a major coughing fit. So what I would do is I would just have the water bottle right by my bed and I would chug all the water, and then I also had a packet of Halls right next to the bed, and I would just have that in my mouth and soothe my throat, and then I went back to sleep, no problem. And it only happened once a night for just a couple of nights through that whole 2-week ordeal of quarantine. So another thing that I had was a mild loss of taste and smell, which was crazy. I mean, you hear about it all the time. People lose their sense of taste and smell, and you just never know if that's going to happen to you. And after about like day 3 or 4, I started to lose my sense of taste, but not all taste. It was more of like sweet flavors, which is crazy because I have a sweet tooth. So it was really hard to taste sweet things and even smelling sweet things. We have this really like delicious oil diffuser in our entryway, and I had to go so close up to it to smell it because I couldn't smell it. And I was really worried that all of that was going to go away, and they said that that's like the symptom that would stay the longest. However, I am very happy to report that all of that is back. It was very bizarre to eat things and taste things and not actually taste the flavor of them. So I'm so happy that I can now taste and smell fully. Because I had all of that time on my hands, I ended up doing a lot more research about the Delta variant and just COVID and what it means to be vaccinated and then also getting COVID. So I am just letting you know what I've read. I'm not a doctor or a nurse or anyone in the medical profession. I'm just telling you what I read. And so you can still get COVID if you're vaccinated. However, the symptoms are going to be quite mild, which is what I experienced. It's not saying that some people don't end up in the hospital, especially if they have underlying issues. For the most part, people don't get hospitalized or die if they've had the vaccine and get COVID. I was so relieved that my symptoms were mild, because I know and have known people to get COVID, and this was before the vaccine, that have suffered so much more than mild symptoms. And so I prayed for them every single night. This video is not to let you know how I feel about being vaccinated, not vaccinated, any of that. I have friends who decide not to get vaccinated, whether it's COVID or other vaccines, and then I have other people that get vaccinated right away. I am just letting you know my experience, what I went through, what you can also look for if you happen to get sick, whether you're vaccinated or not. At the beginning of COVID, a year and a half ago or more, we were just one of those people who were wiping down our groceries, changing the clothes before we walked in the house. If we went somewhere, sanitizing everything, wiping down the kitchen every single night, wiping down all of the light switches, all of the doorknobs, social distancing, wearing a mask. Even after we got vaccinated, I still wore a mask indoors. I just knew that the risk was still there, and because we have small kids, I didn't want to put them at risk, and so it was important for me to still wear my mask indoors. At about the 11, 12, 13, 14 day mark, they said after 10 days, if I didn't have any symptoms, I don't have to be in quarantine anymore. But because I had the slightest little tickle in my throat, I thought, okay, so even if it was 5% of a sore throat, just to give it a number, I just still couldn't feel comfortable with myself getting out of quarantine with my family. So I went past the 14-day mark and started kind of giving them side hugs. During those 14 days, I was eating dinner by myself, sleeping by myself, not being close to my family, and that was the worst part. But it was only temporary, so I knew I had to do it. It honestly was also kind of a nice little break because I wasn't being mom, all the time. So now that it has been 3 weeks, I am slowly getting back into being out of quarantine. So that is it for this video. I think I covered everything. If you have any questions, please let me know what they are. I'd be happy to answer all of them down below. Please be safe out there, and I will continue to hope and pray that everyone who is affected by COVID, whether it's their family member or themselves who get sick, that they all have a fast recovery. I will see you guys all on my next one. Bye.